All right, we're checking today the questions in chapter 3. All right, check your own paper. This will be for a grade. Ready? On page 52, the two largest groups of non-English settlers in the colonies. Give me one, Joey.
The Scotch-Irish.
That is correct. Give me another one, Stephen.
Germans.
That is correct. Scotch-Irish and Germans. 2 points. Number 2. Who were the Pennsylvania Dutch? Caleb.
They were Germans.
That is correct. German settlers. How did they get to be called Pennsylvania Dutch if they were German? How did that happen, Nate?
It was like a misunderstanding of the word Deutsch. This is just German.
Yeah.
German.
Yeah, because, you know, if you know, but Germans don't call it Germany. They call it Deutschland. Deutsch is the word for German. Well, that to many people sounded like Dutch. And so they called them Dutch when they were really German. Anybody have any connection to the Pennsylvania Dutch? Do you have any ancestry there? You do? What part of Pennsylvania? Just somewhere over there, across the line. Okay. The second part of the question is, why did they settle in Pennsylvania? What do you say to that, Jessica?
I think to escape the...
Talk louder, please. We want to make sure that the people at home are able to hear your answer.
They came to escape the raids under the French army.
To escape what?
Like the raids.
Raids?
Like, there's like wars and stuff. Like
Wars? What kind of wars?
The second king.
Okay, we'll accept that. We need to be a little more specific, though. Alex?
And for religious freedom?
For religious freedom. Most of the Germans that came over to this country were from southern Germany. Northern Germany, people did not need to flee if they were Protestant. Why? I can take this down, this map of Germany, but northern Germany, they did not need to flee for religious freedom if they were Protestant. Why? Michaela?
They were like money
Who was it that began a movement in northern Germany? Lahana? You did put your hand up, right?
I know them.
Your mind went blank. Who began a movement, a religious movement in northern Germany? Who could it be? Called the Reformation. Who was it that started that? Hayden?
Martin Luther.
Martin Luther.
Never heard of it.
He lived in Wittenberg, which is northern Germany. Lutheranism spread throughout northern Germany. Southern Germany, however, did not, the princes in southern Germany did not embrace Lutheranism, so they remained what? What did they remain?
Catholic.
Roman Catholic. And in that area of Germany, then there was a lot of religious persecution toward anybody who was Lutheran or Protestants. So it's mostly from central and southern Germany that Germans came over to Pennsylvania. So for religious freedom was one reason. What's another reason why Pennsylvania? Pennsylvania offered religious freedom, but they could have had at least a modicum of freedom in other colonies. Why Pennsylvania? Yeah, rich farmland. And in fact, it was very similar to the land they had in Germany. When I was in Germany, I was amazed at how similar the land was to Pennsylvania. I envisioned as we're driving down the road that if the road signs were not in German, I might have thought that I was in Pennsylvania. The look is very similar. Okay, so they came for two reasons to Pennsylvania. And you are to have given us one at least out of that. So 2 points for number 2. Who were the Pennsylvania Dutch and why they settled in Pennsylvania? Any question about your answers? Number 3, why did so many colonists prefer large families? Steph?
Providing important labor source to the home.
Yeah. I mean, as crass as that sounds, the more kids you have, the more work you get done. Now, that's not true anymore because your parents don't make you work. Right? I know in Poland they don't make you work.
Yeah, we have servants.
It's what to do with Poland.
But back in the times when most people lived on farms, you needed a lot of workers, and it was cheaper to have kids than it was to hire people. So that's the way that works. Any question? Number 4, why were epidemics more prevalent in 18th century America than in the previous century? What do you say about that? Megan, what do you have?
As population grew,
Speak up, please.
as population grew, there's more disease spreading around as goods were imported.
Okay, I'm not sure. You got some right facts there, but how does it relate together? How does that bring more epidemics?
So those diseases imported and spread.
Okay, so especially in port cities where there was contact with the outside world, diseases would come in through the sailors. They're on these ships, and once they got into a city, because there were a lot of people living there, it spread very rapidly. So a couple of factors. One is the population growth in cities made people living closer together and than they had been in the previous century, and then also because there was a lot more trade going on with other parts of the world, diseases came in from those other parts of the world through the sailors, soldiers, and others who might be coming in on the ships. Do you have any question about the proper answer or your answer? Michaela?
I had that it was really crowded in the urban areas, so diseases spread quickly.
Yeah, that's good. You only need that one factor of the two. Like I said, basically 2 factors going on here. Any other question? Okay, that's worth 1 point. Next we go to page 54. What were 2 of the materials used in the construction of colonial houses? We have several from which we can pick. Nate, give us one.
Wooden brick.
Okay, those are actually 2, but that's okay. We got wood and brick. All right, there's possibility of one more you might have had. Joey? Stone. So those are the 3 main materials used in the construction of colonial houses. So you just need 2 of those for 2 points. Any question? All right, number 2. You were to list 4 Native American foods that Europeans found in the New World. Okay, I've got a long list here, so we'll go through and see what you have, and I'll try to find them on my list. So Devin, give us one.
Baked Indian whortleberry pudding.
Okay, that's not that's something that you make.
Okay.
That's not a native food.
Okay.
We're looking for things that grow here. Maybe you were confused by Native American foods. I was thinking Indians. This is talking about foods that are native to America. So give us another one, Hayden.
Peanuts.
Peanuts would be included there, I think, pretty sure. Oh, wait a minute. I don't see, oh yeah, there it is. Okay. I thought it was. Micah, give us another one.
I have oysters.
You have oysters? No, they knew about oysters in Europe. Stephen?
Venison.
No, they had deer in Europe, yeah. In fact, when I was in Ireland, we saw antlers that were from an ancient Irish deer. There was a giant deer. Now, that wasn't around anymore by this time, but there were deer around. Joey?
Squash.
Yes, squash is one. Lydia?
Tomatoes.
Tomatoes, yes, although that really doesn't come around till a little bit later, but tomatoes were a native food. In fact, at first, Europeans thought they were poisonous. And what we know now is the reason that people were getting sick and some dying from eating tomatoes is because they cooked them in pans that were worn, and it was actually the acid of the tomatoes was causing, I guess it was the lead in the pans to come out, and that was what was poisoning people, not the tomatoes themselves. But once they figured that out, now we love tomatoes, right? How many of you love tomatoes? Yeah. My kids do not like tomatoes. I don't know why. Because I think they're great. A little salt on them, bring the sweetness out, some pepper. Lahana, another one?
Pumpkins.
What was that?
Pumpkins.
Pumpkins. That should be on here. Yes. Okay, Steph?
Potato.
Potatoes, yes. Commonly called Irish potatoes. But again, it was a while before it got to North America. Potatoes originally came from South America. The Spanish brought it over to Europe. It made its way through Europe, finally to Ireland, and from Europe came to North America. What's humorous?
She said potato.
Oh, I thought you said potato. Okay, what? Well, potato. See, take credit for it. Potato. That's a good answer. And you said
Cacao.
cacao. How do you say that? Cacao, which is what?
Chocolate.
Chocolate, yeah. By the way, do you know who were the first natives that were discovered with chocolate? It was the Aztecs. And they drank unsweetened chocolate. They drank it. Have you ever tasted unsweetened chocolate? Yeah. So it's not as good as when you've got some sugar in it. Okay, something else, Stephen?
I was gonna say, I was just like confused by this question. Because like, I didn't know that it meant like foods that like grew. I thought it was just like foods that Indians made and ate. Like I didn't know it was just like natural.
All right, could you find 4 of those?
Well, the section I was looking at, I just wrote, they had like a section of the foods I wrote down, I just wrote down those, but they weren't any that were mentioned.
All right, so what did you have?
Oysters, venison, cotton eels, and apple pie. It's in the book. So you just
got it.
Here. It's up here.
Back off, I got
Well, so you interpreted anything that the Europeans saw the natives eating,
Yeah, like,
whether the Europeans had them or not
Yeah.
already. Anybody else interpret the question that way? So just the boys.
come on, I got Devin. I got Devin.
You got
Devin's
Devin.
not just the boy.
That's your claim to
Yeah.
legitimacy? You got
Devin.
Devin. Okay. Well, I guess we'll take that just because you read the question differently. It could be interpreted that way.
Thank you.
Let me just give you some others. In addition to the ones you've named already, you could have said corn, what we call corn, they call maize or Indian corn. Beans, like snaps and lima beans. Did we say squash?
Yeah.
Peppers. And sweet potatoes.
Ugh.
And does anybody else have something in addition? Okay, so you did have 4. That's 4 points. Number 3, why was the literacy rate higher in New England than other regions? Probably 2 reasons you could have put down here. Give me one. Haley?
I had most of them had village schools.
Most of them had religious schools. Okay, we'll take that, but why did they have religious schools? What was their purpose? Caleb? Yeah, they thought it was extremely important to read God's Word. That's why they promoted learning and literacy. In fact, they would pass a law that later was called the Old Deluder Satan Act. Because in the law it says that in order to keep the old deluder Satan from deceiving our people, it's required that the children be taught how to read. You have another one?
Well, I have that the Puritans, the ones who were in they put more emphasis on education, but we put that because they don't.
Well, yeah, if you just tell me, well, the Puritans lived there, doesn't really explain.
Because they put more emphasis on education.
But not why. Okay. We really need to understand why the Puritans put emphasis on education. Any other reason? Also because people live a lot closer together, it made it easier to have schools. You couldn't have schools in the South where people live many, many miles apart. Couldn't work. All right, so mostly because of wanting to be able to read the Word of God and not be deceived by Satan. And then secondarily, because they live closer together. All right, any questions? Page 54. Let's go to page 61. The section review questions. First of all, number 1, the typical modern view of the Puritan. What did you put down for that? Joey?
Mean, unhappy people.
Okay, that's good. What else? Michaela?
Points, different, impact, and fun.
Yeah, no fun.
Dark clothes.
Yeah. Dark clothes. Anything else? Steven?
Darker looks,
Darker looks?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
like their face too bad. Like all the pictures and stuff.
Oh, okay. So they look unhappy, serious. Okay. And then the second part is why is this view inaccurate? What did you put, Joey?
Because they enjoyed games, music, and they wore different colors.
Okay, very good. That covers just about everything. Anything in addition you want to add to what Joey said?
Enjoyed good literature.
Yeah, literature as well. Okay, that's 2 points then for number 1. Number 2, some examples of social gatherings on the frontier. Since it says some examples, how many should you have as a minimum?
What too?
You should have at least 2, and there are actually, I think, 3 different, well, no, there's more than 3. There's about 5 different ones you could have had. Give me one, Caleb. Barn raisings. Give me another one, Joey.
Church services.
Correct. Give me another one.
Corn husking.
Right. Give me another one.
Clothing.
Yes. Give me another one. Joey.
Corn huskings.
Who said that?
Yeah.
Oh, we did.
Yeah. I thought so.
Just so smart.
Bonfires.
I just missed it.
Bonfires. I think that's all, but there's one more. I'm not sure if it was in your text or not.
Oh, they had clubs.
Yeah. And did you find this interesting? They had laughing clubs. Get together and laugh. I don't know if they told jokes or what, but laughing clubs. So just in case anybody thought they were too serious, they had laughing clubs. All right, so how many of you had at least 3? Okay, how many had just 2? All right, we'll just count 2 points on that one. And then we go to the content questions. Number 1, how did the Great Philadelphia Wagon Road aid in developing the American frontier? Michaela?
They made travel easier and it was cheap access backcountry.
Right, that's the main thing. Anybody have another answer? Anything to add? Because it was a means of transportation of people getting from the east out into the frontier, it also provided an opportunity for people along the way to establish inns. And so that all then led to towns and led to growth that way as well. But I'm sure there are a number of places around here like this, but just as an example, how many of you have been to New Middletown? All right, do you know where Ginger Hill is? Do you know where the BP station is?
Yeah.
On corner of Calla and 170.
Is that where the
Right.
ice cream shop is? Or is that a different
Oh, they have
gas
ice cream in the gas station.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right across the road, there's right across on Calla, there's an old house with a stone wall around part of it. That was an inn that came into existence because the road that went by there, well, it's called Youngstown-Pittsburgh Road, 170, and it goes from Pittsburgh to Youngstown. So that was a trail, a stagecoach route. And so that inn was there for people to stay over. All right, just an example of how those things happen in our own area. Okay, number 2, why was the birth rate higher in America than in Europe in the 1700s? Lydia?
Women were married really young.
talk louder, please?
Women were marrying at a young age.
Right. And about what age?
20.
Yeah, women were marrying around by the age of 20, and in Europe they were waiting longer, and so that meant they were having less kids. Any question, Alex?
I heard that they just needed more boyfriends.
Okay. I mean, that's part of the reason they wanted more kids to survive workers. The next question, 3 deadly diseases that American colonists faced. Give me one, Haley.
Smallpox.
Right? Give me another one, Sarah.
Dysentery.
Right? Give me another one, Megan. Diphtheria. And there's one more we can have. Do you have it, Micah?
I think malaria.
Malaria. Right. You can have any 3 of those. And most of those are not really around anymore. Or very rare. 3 points, number 3. Number 4, why was education so important to the Puritans? We've kind of alluded to this before. But what answer do you have, Devin?
An ability to read was needed for scripture.
Right, so they can study the Word of God. Any question? Number 5, the first public library in America was established where? Jessica?
Charleston.
Charleston where? It's Charleston, South Carolina. Might there be more than one Charleston?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so let's, if you didn't put South Carolina, take off half a point. Charleston, South Carolina. Because there's also Charlestown, different places, Charleston, so let's be sure we know where that is. That's worth 1 point altogether. Number 6, how did Puritans reflect a Christian view of leisure? How did it reflect a Christian view of leisure? Alex, what do you have?
I had it was like a less priority than studying.
Okay, but I'm not sure that. All right, that's okay, but I think there's a better answer, Sarah.
They believed that God should be other people than
Yeah, that even in their leisure, that God should be glorified, because they believe that God should be glorified in everything you do, including your leisure activities. Any questions? That's worth 1 point. Okay, go back through and count how many points you have off and put it at the top of your paper and circle it. I count 26 points altogether. Once you've done that, pass them to Caleb, and I will record your grade.
Man, some Yo, I'm kidding. Hey, I'm kidding. Hey, get off my phone about that.
Devin, it's like what disease have a chicken pudding in his shrimp. Yeah, that's got some good pudding. Even though it's just like name brand.
Well, story.
Like, yeah, it keeps these things good, but the consistency is
I don't like pudding.
All right, I have an outline to give you for the next chapter.
It's like somehow east.
They do the from
You know,
Those of you that are homeschooling that did not get this, I will put it in the mailbox in the office.
hi Aaron.
Ronnie too.
Nah, I'm on your garbage. Just kidding, Ronnie. Yeah, no, we didn't.
for Sally? Did everybody get one? Does Brady have one?
No, no, you go.
Yeah, go get him. Sally has one. Okay, we're going to look now at the religious background. Denominational beginnings in America to begin with. And we're going to start with the English background. Brady, would you turn off lights, please? And now we can see a little better. We want to run through some of the colonies here. First of all, this will not be in your notes, but just to observe some things. Here are the different colonies. The charter date, the charter recipient, when it was first settled, the kind of settlers, the nationality of settlers, the main reason for coming, their religious orientation, and the established church in that colony. In other words, what church was the official church of the colony. Now I want us to look at this and observe some things. All right, so as you look at these colonies, is there any relationship between the settlers and the main reason for coming? Look it over and see if you see any relationship between the nationality of the settlers, or even within the English, the kind of settler, and the reason for coming. What do you notice? When it says English, you see it's just generally English people that were part of the, have been members of the Church of England. Well, let's look at the English first. What different kinds of people do we have that would be considered English? Just say it out. Puritans would be English. Who else? Pilgrims. Who else? Who else would be English? How about English?
What did I say?
Would they be English? Joey was ready to state the obvious, but was afraid to because...
Yeah, I said it, and they all started shaking their heads. They're like, no, you're so dumb.
And now who's the dumb one, huh?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so do you see any differences between the reason for coming between the English, the Pilgrims, and the Puritans? The English being primarily members of the Church of England. So any relationship between who they were and the reason for coming? Caleb?
Most of the other countries come for economic.
Let's just look at English first.
They wanted religious freedom.
All the English came for religious freedom?
Most, I would say.
Good. Economic gain? Radical split, that's religious, economic gain, religious freedom, debtors. What are the two basic reasons why people came from England? Religious freedom and what else? Economic gain. Now, is there any connection between what kind of people they were, or what religion we might say, or denomination they were, and the reason for coming? The main reason for coming. Devin?
It looks like if they were affiliated with the Church of England, then they came for economic gain.
Yeah. And why would that be? Why didn't they come for religious freedom if they were members of the Church of England? Sarah, why wouldn't they come for religious freedom if they're members of the Church of England?
Because if
Speak up.
they're members of the Church of England, then they would be persecuted.
Right, because that's the church that was in charge in England. They were in control. So why would you? What freedom would you need? Your church is the one that's has the authority. All right. So many of the English that came, if they were members of the Church of England, would have come for economic gain. Now these are different because these English coming to Maryland are Roman Catholics. So they're coming for religious freedom too, as a refuge for Catholics. All right, now look at the other nationalities. What correlation do you see between the reason for coming and other nationalities? Pick out a nationality and look down through and see if it's consistent. And if it's not, then we should ask why. Michaela, who do you pick out?
The Dutch.
The Dutch. All right, is it consistent?
Yeah.
What is it?
Economic
Economic
gain.
gain. Here's Dutch. Here's Dutch. That's expansion. That's economic gain. Dutch, economic gain. Okay, why were the Dutch coming for economic gain and not religious freedom? Steph?
Because they already had that religious freedom.
Right. So the only reason to come over was to try to get rich. All right, what's another nationality? Devin?
Swedish
The Swedish. They're coming for what?
economic gain.
Okay, here, and that's only two we have. All right. So, even though they had a state church, they were Lutheran, but there were no dissenters, and so they came for economic gain. All right, another one. What are you looking at? Oh, it's a wasp. It won't hurt you.
Yeah.
Unless it lands on you. All right, any other nationalities?
German.
German. Is there anyone but here? I think that's someplace. What are Germans coming for?
Religious freedom.
Religious freedom. They're fleeing the war, religious wars in Europe, coming to Pennsylvania. Oh, down here too. German religious freedom going to Georgia. All right. Oh, there's another nationality we haven't talked about yet.
French.
The French. They're coming for religious freedom. What religion are they practicing that they need freedom? What religion was France? What denomination was France? Joey?
The Huguenots.
That's not what France was.
Oh, I don't know that.
What were they, Lahana? Roman Catholic. So who's fleeing? Who's fleeing from France? Well, they would consider themselves Christians too, so let's not be let's call them Protestants. And they were, the French Protestants were called Huguenots. And they came primarily to Georgia. Some several other places too. How many have heard of Paul Revere? His father was a French Huguenot who settled in New England. All right, what else can we see here? Religious orientation. What connection can you make between the religious orientation and the settlers? What conclusions can you reach looking at that? Devin?
The Anglicans are English.
So if you've got English settlers, they establish a church which is Anglican, or Church of England. Is that consistent? Looking down through? Well, this one would be a different because they're Roman Catholics coming over. This one is a little different just because of the way Rhode Island was founded with Roger Williams and just anybody coming in, but they still had a Congregationalist church. Okay, so what other connections do we have? Michaela?
The Dutch Reform.
Right, because they brought their church with them, right? Okay, what else do we see? We just talked about them. The French established a Huguenot congregation church. These Germans, because they're fleeing from the southern Roman Catholic area, established Lutheran churches. Many of them fit into there as well. Okay, we'll get into our notes more tomorrow. I want you to, in the meantime, read and take notes on pages 62 to 68. Pages 62 to 68.